devices.
Wow, you guys are lifesavers.
That's what you think.
In action.
The Walking Dead Dead City, exclusively on AMC and AMC+.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News at 90. The Supreme Court handing down major rulings Friday as this term nears an end. In a split decision, justices limited the power of lower courts to issue nationwide orders blocking federal policies while legal challenges play out. The case stems from a Trump administration policy targeting birthright citizenship. President Trump touted the court's decision.
Grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple.
President Trump told reporters Friday that he would absolutely bomb Iran if he thought it was necessary. The comments came as House lawmakers received a classified briefing on American strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Lawmakers left the meeting divided, with Republicans reinforcing beliefs the strikes were effective. Some Democrats expressed skepticism.
Severely damaged. They can't recover for a number of years now.
There has been no evidence presented in the public domain that talks about obliterated.
Lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs delivered closing arguments Friday in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial. The defense says prosecutors exaggerated its case and has only showed evidence of his swingers lifestyle. Deliberations start Monday. That's your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. This week, the big deal was the U.S. Supreme Court's final decision week before its summer recess. The justices handed down opinions on several major cases, including a ruling that states may cut off Medicaid reimbursement for Planned Parenthood's non-abortion medical services. And another decision backed a group of religious parents who want to opt their children out of classes with LGBTQ storybooks. And on Friday, in another highly anticipated ruling, the court limited the ability of federal judges to block some of President Trump's executive orders nationwide. The ruling hands more power to the presidency, and it raises key questions about Trump's efforts to deny citizenship to the children of non-citizens who were born in the United States. That was an executive order that Trump signed on his first day in office. Here is the president reacting to the court's decision, calling it a monumental victory.
This is really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state or a liberal judge or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country should never be forgotten.
Joining me now with more are two of the best political analysts in the business. Alex Cohen is a political anchor for Spectrum News Plus based in Southern California. Curtis Jackson is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Columbus, Ohio. And Curtis, now the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision does not mean that policies instituted by the White House will go completely unchecked by the federal courts, but they no longer will have the ability of individual judges, at least, to issue sweeping nationwide injunctions, right?
That's right, Errol, and it also creates sort of a patchwork system potentially going forward here in which courts will consider only the cases of those who are before them. And so their determination will not apply nationwide here. This has been something that both sides of the aisle, and Republican and Democratic administrations have complained about, the so-called forum or judge shopping. The Biden administration was very critical of a judge in Texas, Matthew Kaczmarek, who pretty much overruled any attempt by them to deal with the gun issue. We saw in the dissent, though, that, sauce for the goose. Justice Sotomayor pointing out that, by allowing this to happen now, another administration could come in and potentially go after guns or other rights. And it will be up to the court to decide only the matter of those before them or create a very cumbersome class action sort of setup that will involve cases percolating all the way up to the Supreme Court, which could take a number of years.
Okay, so now, Alex, the decision on temporary injunctions is in response to President Trump's executive order placing restrictions on birthright citizenship, which has been part of the U.S. Constitution for more than 150 years. What does this mean for the future of birthright citizenship in our country, do you think?
Well, that is a big question open for debate. One thing is for certain, as Justice Coney Barrett wrote, this will not take effect for at least 30 days after this ruling. But as Curtis mentioned, this really creates this possibility of a patchwork system of about 20 plus states where birthright citizenship might remain and others where it wouldn't. And if you really start to think about the logistics, the practicalities of this, there are huge implications for things such as the Social Security administration and whether or not Social Security numbers are administered. Also, having had 2 children myself, you can't necessarily control when a baby is coming into this world. And it'll be interesting to see in some of these states at that 30-day mark what kind of chaos really that could create in hospitals, which are supposed to be places of health care. But for any number of reasons, including now this issue of citizenship, we're seeing hospitals becoming very politicized places. And I think this could lead to some very complicated questions going forward.
And Curtis, we always want to remind people that immigration issues are not confined to the southern border. What would an end to birthright citizenship and faster deportations mean in the Midwest?
Well, we've already seen some incidents here where you are looking at people who are the so-called dreamers, right? There's a young man that was in Butler County, Ohio, who was brought here from Venezuela or Honduras when he was 8 years old, and so effectively has been a citizen. Now he's been deported back to his parents' native country. So we're going to start to see a lot more of that, even though, keep this in mind here, this decision never addressed the constitutionality of the executive order. And Justice Sotomayor points out that's likely because the government actually knows that what they're trying to do is unconstitutional. And yet they've created some legal wiggle room here that could be subject, as Alex has pointed out, to interpretation.
Okay. Now, Alex, speaking of President Trump's mass deportation campaign, the White House says it has been targeting immigrants with criminal convictions or pending charges. But there's some recent arrest data, I understand, out of California that tells a very different story. Who's really being arrested out there?
And that is another complicated question and different answers depending on who you're asking. The latest figures show that more than 1,600 people have been detained here in California. The Trump administration has maintained that many of them have a criminal record. The Cato Institute has fired back, finding that those numbers of criminality are in fact significantly lower than what the White House has claimed. Also finding that this criminal activity involves things such as traffic violations, which may not be considered on the same par as other sorts of criminal activity. There's also real concern here. Here in Los Angeles, a woman from Honduras is suing because they detained her 6-year-old child who is battling leukemia. I think it's fair to say that that child most likely does not have a criminal record. These were the stories that President Trump tried to avoid in his first administration. It'll be very curious to see how they respond to these individual situations this time around.
Well, I mean, and Alex, to the extent that we've heard that the White House put out a number of 3,000 deportations per day, it turns out it's almost impossible to find active criminals at that pace. It's not like law enforcement, was looking for those folks and couldn't find them. So then they end up, trolling around in the parking lot of the local Home Depot to try and find anybody, right?
That's right. And Errol, just one more number to put in context here, roughly 1 million undocumented immigrants in LA. So 1,600 just a drop in the bucket, really, but all human lives.
All right. Thanks very much, Alex. Thank you, Curtis, as well. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll tell you about the newest immigration detention center opening in southern Florida. A look at Alligator Alcatraz is next on The Big Deal.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party. Bring it to the top. Bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy. Unwind. Connect. With Spectrum TV On Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more, all available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV On Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
We're back with The Big Deal. Florida is forging ahead with a plan to open a new immigration detention facility in the South. Construction has begun on a facility in what the state is calling Alligator Alcatraz. It's located 45 miles west of downtown Miami in the middle of the Everglades, an isolated airfield surrounded by mosquito and python and alligator-filled swampland. The facility is set to open in July as part of the state's efforts to support the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign. Spectrum News political reporter Jason Delgado has more in this report.
With ICE raids ramping up across the country, Florida is working to build a new jail way down in Alligator Alley. The target, they say, is in 30 to 60 days.
We rolled out this proposal last week. It's a location we've been looking at with law enforcement for a while. 30 square miles surrounded by the Everglades down in South Florida. Prevents the unique opportunity for a low-cost detention facility because the perimeter is already set by Mother Nature.
The new site is an abandoned 39-square-mile airstrip. The plan calls for at least 5,000 beds, plus infrastructure for water, sewage, and more.
My concern here, Jason, is that it's half-cocked. It's not a serious policy conversation. It's designed to get headlines, hence the name, right? And in an attempt to go viral. That really, I mean, that's most of what this attorney general has done since taking office.
I call it
Alligator Alcatraz.
The state says they expect at least partial reimbursement for the project. According to the New York Times, the operation cost could run Florida roughly $450 million a year.
Now, to get this all done, Governor DeSantis had to lean upon his emergency powers, thereby allowing him to grab up the land.
Jason Delgado joins me now with more. And Jason, in your piece, the Florida Attorney General mentions that there's no worry about detained migrants escaping the area. Paint a picture for our viewers of the remoteness and the harsh conditions surrounding this airstrip.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair question, because I'd imagine when most people think of Florida, you think what? White sand, blue waters. But let me tell you, if you start pushing, say, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 miles inland, we're talking about another world now. You are in swamp country. So let's say you've never been out there. I grew up in Florida. If you're not by a swamp, you're standing in a marsh. If you're not in a marsh, you're standing next to a puddle. It is hot. It is sticky. And look, the sun, it's just relentless. Beyond that, there's also a ton of wildlife. As you heard, the state's kind of touting the alligator population, the python population. Never mind the mosquitoes, those will get you too.
Yeah, so now Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is using his emergency powers, and he's using emergency money. He's using FEMA disaster recovery money to build this jail right in the middle of hurricane season. Is the state going to be left shorthanded if there's a storm?
Well, that depends on who you ask. Governor DeSantis says no, absolutely not, that the state has prepared for things like this. They're in the disaster business after all, being in Florida. However, just today, the Senate Democrats, they held their own little press conference explaining how concerned they are that the state is not only deviating money, but resources, and also the intention of not only just state workers, but also the Florida National Guard. In fact, they're planning to deploy roughly 100 guardsmen to that site. And keep in mind, this is just the first site. The state is already planning, at least looking at one other possible location. And of course, that's a lot more resources that we're going to have to devote to kind of carrying out this operation.
I want to play a part of what the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis had to say about why he's pushing so hard on this project.
The reason why we're having this to be able to be staged is so the feds can process folks and then remove them from our country. And that's the only reason why we're interested in this, because it helps fulfill President Trump's mission.
So now supporting Trump's mission, it could end up costing, as you reported, almost $500 million a year. Who's going to pay for all of that?
Well, that's another big question. So at least at first, Florida's going to have to do it. Florida's going to have to pony up the money to sustain this operation. As you mentioned, that's a big chunk of change, almost $500 million. With that said, the state has, the federal government has come out and said they plan to reimburse the state for this program. But then again, this program's running through FEMA. And I'm not saying that money won't get there, but as a hurricane-prone state, and FEMA, given all the work that they do, Lord knows when that money could come back. And as you mentioned, we are in the middle of hurricane season.
So now the political opposition includes a former Homeland Security Secretary who's calling the plan, quote, a grotesque mix of cruelty and political theater. I saw there are Native Americans who consider this area sacred. They've got their complaints. And of course, the Everglades themselves are part of the national park system and are actually providing a third of the state's drinking water. Are these opponents likely to maybe get together, and are they going to slow the plan or maybe even kill it?
Well, they're certainly going to try. And I can tell you this. They've just filed a lawsuit, an environmental group based here in Florida, against the federal government, against the state, trying to get an emergency injunction so that they can stop this before it starts kicking off come Tuesday. Now, will it work out? That's hard to say. But in the lawsuit, they're claiming that the federal government, neither the state, took the necessary steps before launching off and start kicking off this site. In particular, they believe that there should have been some sort of environmental analysis done before we're supposed to open up, which, by the way, Tuesday's kickoff day. At least that's what the state's telling us.
This is going to end up being a national issue, isn't it? I do remember as a kid when they were planning to make the world's biggest airport in this very same site, using that airstrip as, part of the area. And it was the start of the EPA. It was the start of Earth Day. I know past presidents have gone to that very site in the Everglades. There was a big political movement to try and preserve that area.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of history that starts in the Everglades. In fact, kind of the federal government observed it very early on when it started taking up this whole environmental initiative. And as you said, in fact, in that lawsuit, they note how this whole environmental protection initiative really started near that area in the Everglades, trying to deter what they say is happening right now, which is, you know, kind of thwarting that region and however sensitive it is.
Okay, thanks very much. Great reporting, Jason Delgado. We are not done just yet. Coming up next, we will break down the results of New York City's Democratic primary election for mayor, which is making international headlines. Stay with The Big Deal.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
Spectrum with Paramount Plus is the entertainment destination.
You're gonna love this.
Getting oil out of the ground is the most dangerous job in the world.
It's so good to see you.
Come on!
Right now, I am in first gear. Would you like to see me shift to 6?
Stream a mountain of the entertainment you love on Paramount Plus. Included in Spectrum TV Select plans at no extra cost.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
You're watching The Big Deal. This week, the other big deal was the Democratic primary contest to become mayor of the nation's largest city. In New York, Zohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old progressive candidate, stunned the political world by pulling off a historic upset against an establishment politician, Andrew Cuomo, a former 3-term governor who is the son of another former 3-term governor. Here's part of Mamdani's victory speech where he listed some of his top priorities.
Reject Donald Trump's fascism. To stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors. And to govern our city as a model for the Democratic Party.
While the final primary results will not be official for more than a few days, Mamdani would make history as New York's first South Asian and Muslim mayor if elected in November. Joining me now with more on this local race is Ali Najmi. He's counsel to the Mamdani campaign. He's also a longtime organizer in the South Asian community in New York City. Great to see you, Ali Najmi. And the success of your candidate, of Zohran Mamdani, who describes himself as a socialist, has exposed major divisions in the Democratic Party. You have him being endorsed by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. These are national figures. They're very progressive. They're very popular. Is this what he meant by saying this is the future direction of the Democratic Party?
I think what he meant was that we are going to meet people where they are, and we're going to challenge them to take it to the next level in terms of what it means to be progressive. There are, bread and butter issues, public safety, saving people from unfair treatment by ICE, issues across the board that need to be taken to the next level, and he is the future of that party.
Is this a one-off for New York, or is there a national trend here?
Well, I think we're going to see. But the way New York goes, the nation goes. And I think the office of the mayor of the city of New York is an influential position.
President Trump is already attacking your candidate, calling him a, quote, 100% communist lunatic. That's an early indication of the all-out attacks that you can expect, because he is a man of color and a Muslim and an immigrant and a socialist. How do you expect to handle that?
I think New Yorkers understand that Donald Trump is the real lunatic, and that Mamdani is what he's saying is he wants to protect New Yorkers. And so I think New York is going to embrace Zohran Mamdani and his message.
Ironically, one thing that your candidate has in common with Donald Trump is this relentless focus on affordability during the campaign. That's really something that a lot of people all over the country can relate to.
Absolutely. Affordability was the core message, and people are hurting in New York economically, right? And so we need to be honest about what the situation is. And he has a clear message of fast and free buses, freeze to rent, universal child care, and it's resonated with people.
Yeah, and the universal child care part, which I think a lot of my audience may not be familiar with, is in New York, you get universal pre-kindergarten at this point, where when your child turns 3 or 4 or 5, there's basically a chance to have city-paid childcare for them. What is your candidate is planning to expand that even more?
Yes, right now it's pre-K and 3K, we call it, right? And it would expand it to an older age group of children. And it would be, it's going to make a tremendous impact. Look, pre-K and 3K has had a tremendous impact on families. And, Bill de Blasio has said, the former mayor who implemented that he gets stopped on the street constantly about it. And so there's still a need. I mean, people don't stop having childcare issues when their kids turn 3. I mean, they need more help.
And the theory behind it is that it frees up parents to go out and make more money and basically prosper economically, right?
And it's going to have a huge economic impact in the positive.
Right. So now, between now and the end, meaning November, you're sort of trying to win a local race, but this is going to be a national effort, whether you want it to be or not, right?
Look, once the president's weighed in on something, then it's definitely a national effort, and that's okay, because we have friends across the nation and supporters in the Democratic Party that are going to support Zohran Mamdani in this general election.
We like to pride ourselves on being tolerant as Americans, but the fact that he's Muslim has been a specific attack point already. How do you plan to deal with that?
Well, Zohran Mamdani is unapologetically Muslim, and what we see from the primary results is that New York loves Muslims, and Zohran Mamdani loves all New Yorkers. So I really don't think it's an issue. If it was an issue, he wouldn't have won the primary.
Yeah, well, that's one answer for all of these things. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's put it to a vote, and we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with you.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for The Big Deal. We're going to be off next week for the holiday, and then we'll be back on July 11th. Stay tuned to your local station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Are you ready for the ultimate entertainment experience? Spectrum is bringing together the streaming apps you love. Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with